this is what you get when you tell nerds to like solve your own needs. You know what I mean? This is actual quotes that the thing is saying. Fill me with your alpha seed. I mean, honestly, might be the worst thing that ever came out of Alpha 11 Labs. But like, this is what you get when you have like solve your own needs, right? But just to be right, like to be specific, I'm not saying this is a bad product. Like it has a market, you know, like sex toys have been around forever. They have a market, especially this one. I can like see a very clear customer profile. You know, like how it says here, like touch me with your brine. You know, like it's a clear market and a clear customer, brine. And I can see it with him. You know, it's like it's a good product. There's a clear value prop. You know, especially with this, I think they're onto something. I think if you like go into the mindset of a typical brine, you want to get into like the top 1%. You know, like you want to like be like rejuvenate. You want to be like compete with the top percentage of 20-year-olds, you know, like in penile trust. There's like this thing that the UFC has, is like a power cube where you can like punch against, you know, and this is like happening when Eddie Hall is punching it. What? So my thinking is like, maybe we just combine this. Wait a second. Maybe just combine this. Wait, what did my thing break? 1 second, my Keynote decided that it doesn't like me anymore. Keynote? What's happening? Give me 1 second, folks. Okay. We just combine it. Like we do full global leaderboards. I think this is honestly a perfect startup idea. Make it hyper competitive. Like there's anyway like a big crisis around dating and everything apparently, you know, so like make this a huge global competitive thing and so on and so on. Okay, anyway, how did we get here? We can talk about ideas, okay? So the general advice is it's super contextual, and also like a lot of early ideas just sound stupid. And this is like one of the problems we have in startups. A lot of things, when you hear them the first time, sound like ideas that your stoner friend could say. You know, like jump into a random person's car, you know? That's Uber. Like, who the hell would do that? Like, I literally still remember that this is like a thing my parents told you not to do. Hey, you could like just blog but shorter, you know? Like, this is a weird idea. Or like, I can drink a leaf, you know? Like, this is tea. Like, big ideas sound stupid originally. And even like stuff like Airbnb, like imagine a website where you can like just share your room, and most importantly, your biggest competitor is doing it completely for free. Yeah, you know, those things turn out to be big, you know. The problem we have in our industry is like nobody really knows early on. You know, like for example, PayPal was like voted like one of the worst ideas ever in 1999. And as we know, Peter Thiel was kind of successful with it, right? The other thing is like to make it even worse, like companies pivot. For example, most people don't even notice, but like Hugging Face originally wanted to do AI companions or AI boyfriends and girlfriends and like this kind of stuff, you know. But they were like way too early. And the funny thing is, whenever they showed their product to like other people, those people were like more interested in their tech, like how they make it work. And they wanted to use that themselves. They wanted to have like that as a service, right? So that is the reason why it changed. But this is the reason why like it's called Hugging Face, because of this smiley emoji. That was the original thing they wanted to do. Another good example is like Slack for pivots. Slack, the folks at Slack originally wanted to build a game with like real-time messaging and all this kind of stuff. The game wasn't that good, never really got traction, but the real-time messaging like worked really well, and the whole socket stuff they built for it was like working really well. So like they completely pivoted on this. The fun fact with Slack is actually that the same people, the same founder team beforehand built actually Flickr, which also started as a game. And they also had to pivot away when they ran out like of runway. And they realized that a lot of their users like using the galleries for profiles to share like images and everything. And this is like, okay, maybe just focus on that part. And this is how Flickr started. So anyway, sooner or later, this guy will build an amazing game and won't get distracted by $1 billion idea. And I'm seriously praying for him. But until then, he will do enterprise software. So back to the common advice. One thing I wanted to do today is I wanted to share a few thoughts that I don't think you have everywhere, okay? I'm not saying that necessarily like all of them are good, but I think that at least they are not the typical stuff, I hope at least, okay? So let's see. Number one, know what you want. And this is a very, very common problem that I see. If you want to build a side project, a non-VC company or VC fundable startup, all three have like very different evaluation criteria. And my absolute pet peeve is changing that, and you can like easily break it. So like, for example, like why do I build like a side project? I want to learn something, I want to like have fun. In this case, for me personally, it's just important how quickly can I actually ship it. And like, is it like, it doesn't matter if it's like a huge, small or whatever, it can be tiny, but like I want to get it out there and I want to like learn something. If we see fundable startups, like there's a reality, can this actually get funding? The problem that I regularly see is that people jump in between with the evaluation criteria. So basically like, yeah, it's a great idea, but like, how can this get big? Or yeah, this is a great idea, but how do we actually make early money with this? And what you essentially are doing is you're jumping around with the evaluation criteria. And this is personally for me like one of my pet peeves, because you can kill any idea with stupid questions. Like I frequently tell people that I don't care for devil's advocate. Like any person out there who is like not a complete sociopath has enough in imposter syndrome and has enough like self-doubt that they have like enough reasons why something might not work. What you actually want to do is like find reasons why it could work. But it's really, really easy to change the evaluation criteria for your ideas and then constantly like just essentially abandon every idea, even in brainstorming. As a quick side note, right now is an amazing time to start non-VC companies. The VC market just doesn't really know what to do right now. You can basically right now start companies that have 1 second, let me jump here. You can right now like start companies that make money. For example, like I'm a big fan of like Danny's project, Headshot, and a few others. And those won't like, those in 2021 all had like competitors that got like big funding. And you can say like what you want about VC money, but like if your competitor can just hire a large team and like underprice you because they don't care for any revenue margins whatsoever, that gets boring really, really quickly and can dry you out as like a bootstrapping founder or like a solo founder or anything like that. This doesn't happen right now. They won't get any funding. And the other good thing is like all of the competitors who did get funding, like because they jumped the last VC ship, they have potentially too much funding right now and they're bloated. They have like overpaid the salaries of the team. They maybe hired too many people and so on and so on. So they need to cut revenue. They need to cut their burn rate. They're like in a very bad situations by default, because by default they will run out of money and cannot raise again, but also have like a burn that like forces them to run out of money. So they have like at this point, they have like multiple decisions. Like decision number one is we just cut our burn, we fire a few people and we kind of try to make it work. The problem is at that point, you're telling your investors that you're essentially considering this now like a bootstrap business, unless you find a smart way to frame it as like a temporary thing, which is in this kind of cases very hard. At that point, they most likely will ask you to just like give half of your money, the money back that you raised, which also means that your bank account is not depleted. This is a very bad situation to be in and to have received funding. Okay, so new ones won't get money. The old ones who got the money actually have a death clock, and that's the unfortunate truth right now. The other good thing is like a lot of your potential customers are already like really educated, because a lot of people in the past had the funding to do marketing and everything, and they're willing to try new solutions, and because they were like trained the last 5-6 years to constantly try out new companies. So it's a great time to run to start non-VC companies. On the other hand, if you want to go to VC, it's a horrible time to fundraise, for the simple reason that VC money is currently tight, that because they struggle raising themselves. Like the reason why startups don't get that much money right now is because VCs struggle to raise themselves. And the same is the same scenario that you have currently with startups, where like a few startups get a lot of funding and everybody else gets like very little or hardly any. Is it true with like VCs? Like most of the LPs are now flocking like to the big brand firms, like no pension fund manager ever got fired for investing in Andreessen Horowitz kind of mindset, and they won't invest in all the other funds. So like all the all the other funds are currently like also like very tight on money, you know. Anyway, but if you want to go in VC, you need to pick an area that gets funding. And my favorite hack here is actually request for startups, which is a kind of an obvious one. But I think a lot of people misunderstand them. Like these are not lists where you should look for ideas that what you want to build in. These are lists for areas where you can get funding. And the POV I have here is not so much the specific ideas that get listed, but more the general narrative around them, like how they think about it, how they frame it. And what you can do is you can take like ideas that you have and can try to like push them slightly into those narratives. Right now, from my point of view, evaluating ideas around potential VC cases, the main evaluation right now is not like how big it can get, but like, can you get funding? And from my point of view, the best thing you can do to like evaluate this like really quickly is there's like roughly, I would say, 10 good requests for startup lists out there. See if you've like fit in any of those. And if you don't, then like try to realign, like adjust your narrative, like push slightly into this direction, or like abandon the idea, as hard as it sounds, at least my personal opinion. If you don't care about VC, which I highly recommend to do, if you don't care about VC, move on trends fast. Second. Perfect. If you don't care about VC, move on trends fast. It's, for example, Stability AI comes out, you know, ton of people are making stuff with it. And that's exactly what you want to do. There is currently this beautiful time where you can take a new tech and build a product that works for, let's say, 6 months, if you're lucky, 24 months, you know, until it becomes a commodity in like whatever other stuff people are using, until there's like so many competitors, like there's like, it has a moment it will be like no longer making any money. But you have like, let's say 6 to 24 months where you can make a lot of money and you can realistically extract a few $100K to a few million out of those. Obviously, my absolute favorite one for this is Pete. A good friend of mine, he's godlike when it comes to this. He's like absolutely godlike. And I took a picture of his Twitter profile recently because I realized something. He has like all these startups where he currently makes money, and like my brother basically like published a merchandise shop and already like made 8K with it, you know. Basically, like while I'm talking with you right now, he most likely launched a new company already and had like 3K with it. But he lists all his revenue and he actually ran out of space. I don't know if you've ever seen this or realized this. He actually ran out of space. He had to put the revenue of his book into like the line below because he makes like, there's another project where he makes money. A freaking gold star. But what he does really, really well from my point of view is he takes a tech and quickly applies it to like ideas. And some of these ideas are obvious, you know, like photo AI or whatever. But more importantly, he moves really fast. And that's like one of the main like suggestions I have when you actually look for ideas is build stuff. Like get familiar with new stuff and understand how it works. And 1 second, sorry for the typo here. I don't know. So the main reason why I'm thinking like this here is, from my point of view, when I understand technology properly, I see it as a new tool I can use, like a tool in the sense of like a toolbox. You know, like I have hammer, screwdriver, all this kind of stuff. The moment you understand a product properly, like in the moment when you understand like a new technology properly, you can actually all of a sudden apply to all kinds of new problems that you know. You can like just say like, hey, let's do that, but like with this new tech, you know, like try to solve it. Or like, let's do an old problem with like a new opportunity, like mobile OI or whatever, you know. But for me, more importantly, it's like if I actually prototype with stuff, and I don't know if this is true with you as well, I understand it way deeper than any abstract articles I read about it. And most of the stuff out there, like from LLMs to even like including LangChain and everything, data extraction down to bots to anything, it's actually surprisingly easy if you really, really break it down, you know. The beautiful thing here is like you understand the boundaries, and you also understand like where this stuff is like has weaknesses and where it has strengths. So for example, like it's now really, really easy to extract data out of documents, out of text and everything. That like all of a sudden text is an API. And that's like now a tool that you can just like have in your toolbox and like use for stuff. And when you do this, it's kind of like going to a gym to train, or like going to like a dojo to train. You have like all of these skills micro skills, you know, that you can now like apply to stuff. This is why I'm a huge fan of side projects. I personally think side projects is one of the best things ever. Stupid little ideas is one of the best things ever because they teach you this kind of stuff, you know. And I honestly don't believe in like reading 5 articles about this or 50 articles about this. Regarding ideas and evaluation of ideas and finding ideas, from my point of view, positioning is more important than anything else. I mentioned this like a few times. Like I'm a CTO by trade, I'm engineering by education. Product is actually the win. Okay, you can build the same tech and apply it differently, and it will make more money. Position makes all the money. Like I realized this during university. I think I told you guys already once, but I realized this during university when I was back then building, I called it like computer science prostitution. So I built like apps for small businesses, and they basically, whatever they wanted to have, I just made it cheaper, you know, like dev long time, cheapy kind of stuff. I built a ton of like upload forms and like this kind of stuff. And I think every developer has done this at some point. And at some point I came across it like on a product that was meant for lawyers. It was essentially a secure upload space for lawyers. It was nothing else than a form with SSL and like save uploads and then login, username, password login. I built this for like dozens of customers of mine, you know, and I charged next to nothing as a student. Those people back then, at least, they charged like serious money from these lawyer companies. And that is pure positioning. There's like nothing else. There was no tech difference, no legal difference, no nothing. It's just pure positioning. Since then, I'm trying to find lawyers to sell stuff to because apparently they have too much money. And side aspect here is also like becoming good at seeing problems. Most people don't see problems. They work around problems without realizing that this is a problem. This is how you do stuff, you know? Yes, I received this per email and then I just like copy paste this into the spreadsheet. Or in this spreadsheet, I just do all of these 5 steps and that's like normal. That's like the thing you do, you know? A good example here, because we talked about it before, is like Slack. Email communication was before an email. Like communication before was an email and nobody was like complaining how horrible it is or anything. I mean, unless you got like a reply all chain. Slack and similar tools just completely changed this. And before that, there was like chats, you know, but they were like for the development team. And like, I still remember like back then having my, like my co-founder coming to me and telling me stuff I should type into the chat for the developers, quote unquote, the CTO, you know, because he didn't want to like log in. People don't see problems, you know, and that's like one of the big advantages that like product builders have, is like the ability to learn to see problems. One quick side note here is a good friend of mine, like Rob, wrote like one of the best books ever, Mom Test book. The idea how you can actually ask people about your product, and the core idea to like allow you to skip the whole book. Okay, the whole core idea is, instead of asking them if they like your product or would like your product, instead of asking them if they have this problem, because both is already heavily biasing, both of that, like the first one is selling, the second one is biasing, like it's completely lost. What you actually want to do is you want to like let them talk about their work, let them talk about their day, and then gently guide them to where you think are the problems and see if they mention them as problems, see how they talk about it. So you learn the language, you learn if it's actually a big pain point or not. And in the end, you have validated like your idea, or like at least found out that your idea is maybe like not really an issue, you know, without you ever needing to pitch your idea. Most people are really good in pitching. Most people are really, really bad in listening. Mom Test book, it's finally a book that like outside of Europe also people recognize, you know. Highly recommend. Rob is amazing. He got recently recast for the new House reboot, which I'm really, really happy for him. You know, he's currently living like in Spain. He's amazing. Guys, if you have ever the chance and you're like in Spain and you can hang out with him, you will have the best time ever. Stay away from obvious solutions is my other recommendation when you like try to find and evaluate ideas. A common one right now is AI assistants, okay? Like if I build autocomplete able LLMs that can simulate humans, that can do arbitrary like solution approaches, the most obvious one is AI assistant app. Before that, it was like text editors with autocomplete, and in between, it was like connect your data to LLM. There's like all these like default ideas that people have, where dozens, if not hundreds of people are working on the same stuff. You know what I mean? Stay away from those, especially if you don't want to go for VC funding. Even if you want to go for VC funding, stay away from that. There's very few companies where I think they should go after. And it's like usually like if you can be one of the one or two that can actually win it, you can raise the money, you got the right team, and you all got like what is usually called in the industry like the right to win. Like you have the right background, the right knowledge, the right team, like everything, then go after them. But like in almost all cases, stay away, but like stay away, and like we'll get to this in a second. Number two, also stay away from, in my opinion at least, stay away from like holes in platforms, which how at least I call them. So every platform out there is currently not good in some little thing, and it's very, very common for somebody to be like, hey, let me just fix that because so many people are trying to use this platform. Can be a good idea for like a few months, and if you're like fast enough, you can use this as like a starting point to like another idea and like a bigger idea. That's great, In many cases, you will just be, as Sam Altman calls it, like getting steamrolled, because they will obviously improve their own platform. Okay, so these are the two things I usually use to evaluate, like, and that I personally like try to stay away from. And so like this is where you should stay away from, but like what is actually like a good area to look for ideas? And in my opinion, it's the second degree effect. There's like the classic recommendation here is like go after niches. So like, can you use LLMs but for lawyers or something like that, right? I think something that's a little bit more interesting is second degree effects. So for example, in a world where everyone does now X, everyone uses X for something, what will change? Okay, so like a lot of people will build the X, and some of them will be successful, because Y was always a problem we had. So now everybody's using X to do Y. What is the obvious outcome? Like what happens if that's a thing, And my favorite, for example, is like right now, everybody's using LLMs to apply for their jobs. Many are actually using it to automate applying for jobs. So, like let's just apply to 500 jobs and see what happens. And like each one is personalized, recommendation letter, application letter, and all this kind of stuff, All of a sudden, like all the job HR teams, they receive like hundreds of like auto-generated LLM job applications. What is changing for them? Like, okay, now like their life is horrible. They need ways to filter this. They need ways to evaluate this like on scale as well. But also like in reality, this changes how people approach hiring in total. Like if by default, if you open a job, you will just be spammed. You will not open that job this way anymore in like, let's say 5 years from now, So how can you approach hiring differently here? Or how can you help them at least in the in-between phase to filter this? Like, can you build an ATS that just assumes that everybody spams, Another one is, for example, AI. Like it's really, really easy now to create fake images of people. People will build like deep fakes. They will do like fake images and all this kind of stuff. What is the stuff that you can do to solve this? Like what is the obvious thing you want to do now? And a lot of people are thinking here, like, I need to build an algorithm that allows me to detect if this image, is like a fake. That's really, really hard to do, What's easier is, for example, think about like what are the deep fake areas that are usually done, and can you find ways to recognize those earlier and like avoid the damages? So for example, a common one is, because we already are like, it's an audio show already, let's say there is like deep fakes of influencers, and they're like naked or in bikini or whatever, and there's those will be shared on certain sites. Those will have like, maybe they change their name slightly and so on, and the influencers will need ways to take them down. And all of that can be like comparably easily automated. There's companies doing that. That's a typical second degree effect. Another one is like, we are ranting about GDPR, but like realistically, every country in the world will have something similar in like the next few years, So if that becomes more common, what changes? And like the obvious answer is here, like now I need like better tools to, see where my data is and so on and so on. But like, imagine you're the IT head of something, you know, and you now need to like, okay, we're using this SaaS solution in America, we're using this, here's this private information, this is the, at some point you're like, just like, you know what, I want everything self-hosted. You know, screw this. I'm no longer allowing any SaaS unless it's like self-hosted or within my cluster or within my DMC. Like, I want to have control over this, you know, and that changes like how IT solutions will work, you know. And there will be like there's a lot of others, and maybe I'm wrong with my guesses what second degree effects are. But for me personally, those are like really, really interesting areas to look for new ideas, and those can be VC fundable or not. That's like up to you, right? And they're also like frequently a little bit more, you're like a little bit more ahead of the curve than classic, like take an LLM and apply it to law or something like this, you know? Because the problem we have with these kind of ideas, the current solutions will also do that. So for example, if you say like customer care, but now with LLM, all the customer cares are doing it. You know what I mean? So a little bit like second degree effect. 1 second. Cool. I think this is my last one actually, and then we jump into demos. Stick with it and fail forward, okay? And I'm not saying like stick with like horrible ideas. What I'm saying is what I did in my past is I jumped between ideas, and I jumped between ideas that had nothing to do with each other, you know? So I couldn't reuse my learning. I couldn't reuse this the intel I already acquired. I couldn't reuse my network. I couldn't reuse my like nothing, you know. So I currently always believe like pick an area you care about, you know, like a customer or a problem, and like kind of stick with it. I also know a lot of people who just like stick roughly with like an approach to problems, you know, or approach to ideas and solutions, and they have like always the kind of same way, like levels, like Peter's a good example, but they quickly build something, throw it out there, see what happens, you know. There's other people that are just like, and that's why also like one of my recommendations is like always stick with the tech stack roughly, you know. The main reason here is like, even if you face plant and you just like, you try to walking and you just like fall flat, at least you moved a little bit forward, you know what I mean? Like you at least like your own body's like in length, like forward now. You can reuse and reuse and reuse. And that's like one thing I did completely wrong in the past. So that's would be one of my main recommendations. Okay, cool. I will wrap up and then we jump into demos. And today we have only one, but we get that in a second. Number one, decide like side project company or VC backed, evaluate all of them, evaluate differently, and avoid, especially if you go co-founders, jumping between how you evaluate them. Okay, like decide beforehand how do you evaluate if something is an idea you and your team want to work on, and try to roughly stick with it, because it's really, really easy to play like devil's advocate. Use, if you want to go funding, focus on areas and narratives that currently get funding, or find ways to survive until they do, which is really hard. Jump onto new ideas and actually build with them. And ideally for non-VC cases, this is like right now a perfect time to do. Learn how to see and validate ideas. Read the MOM test book, highly recommend. Avoid the obvious use cases, and rather like think about like, if everybody builds this obvious use case and everybody starts using this obvious use case, what is the world changing into? You know, what is the other side of this? Like what's happening afterwards? And like those are usually really, really strong idea areas. And number three, the last one is like you will fail 100%, but like try to keep roughly within a vector, so that when you fail, you have like stuff you can compound on. You know, a friend of mine basically, okay, this is a too long story, but like short version here is, if you work in like roughly one industry for a long time, even if everything fails, in the end, you're like a consultant, like an expert for this industry. And like this is what happened to a friend of mine, and he's like a very, very well-known consultant now. But like this is another story for another time. Cool, awesome. I think we're jumping into demos.